Roe v. Wade, abortion rights in the U.S. Before the 1900s, there were no laws against abortion. However, it was very frowned upon and dangerous. As time went on in the 1900s, it became more talked about. Mid 1900s, laws started to be made about women having abortions in state. Finally, Roe v. Wade started rolling in 1971. Roe v. Wade is a huge turning point in history, especially in women's rights, because it gave women the right of an abortion and allowed women the choice to have one as to not be burdened by children and focus on their careers or education if chosen, but also caused huge moral debates in the United States. Roe v. Wade was a court case against Texas Supreme Court that would later go on to the higher-up Supreme Court on abortion. Norma McCorvey, also known as Roe, was the anonymous plaintiff in this case. Norma had a rough upbringing and struggled in her adult years. In 1969, she got pregnant for the third time by a friend of hers and wanted to have an abortion in the state of Texas. There was no abortion clinic near her that would perform the abortion, and the only clinic that would do it only closed a few days prior to her finding out she was pregnant. In February of 1970, Norma met with two lawyers, Linda Coffey and Sarah Weddington. Norma told them that she was raped, so that when she was in front of a judge, she could say that she was raped, and that's why she wanted to have the abortion. She never thought that she would ever be in front of the Supreme Court, and her case would later change millions of women's lives for the following 50 years before they overturned Roe v. Wade in 2022. Before the 1900s, many women would have abortions. It was never in conversations that it was illegal for a woman to have one done. However, many women did use harmful ways on themselves to get an abortion done. Some ways being taking herbal drinks that can kill the fetus, drinking alcohol, ingesting bleach, and as going as placing potassium pomegranate into their vaginas to cause chemical burns. All those solutions before we discovered it could be done as a surgery to get rid of a fetus. In 1726, the first surgical abortion was performed, but the United States didn't start using the technology in their practices until 1916. However, this method was only used if women truly needed it. In 1910, a nationwide ban on abortion was introduced against abortions in any form. In 1969, when Jane Roe, also known as Norma McCorvey, got pregnant for the third time. She was only 23 years old, living in Dallas, Texas. She had gotten pregnant at the age of 18 by her first husband. When they got divorced, she would frequently go to gay bars. Norma discovered she was a lesbian when she got pregnant for the second time by having an affair with a man after getting into a serious relationship with a woman. She gave that baby up for adoption. At the end of 1969, she slept with one of her male colleagues, who was also known as Jane Roe's baby father, and she proceeded to get pregnant by him. This would be Norma's third pregnancy by the age of 23, and she ultimately decided she wanted to have an abortion since she was still heavily abusing drugs and alcohol. However, there was no abortion clinic near Norma, and the one that had closed days prior to her finding out she was pregnant. In February of 1970, Norma decided one day to meet up in a diner with two of her female friends, Linda Coffey and Sarah Weddington, who were the lawyers. Norma lied to them and said she had been raped, which is why she didn't want her child. Mid-year of 1970 is when Roe v. Wade got taken to court in Texas. The opposing lawyer is Henry Wade. Roe and her lawyers claimed that Texas were invading her 15th Amendment right and invaded her familial, marital, and her sexual privacy right that was given by the Bill of Rights. Henry Wade argued that Roe's fetus was a person too, which is why it should be protected by the 14th Amendment. Texas court dealt with this case for months on end till they gave it up to the Supreme Court to decide. When it got taken to the Supreme Court in December of 1970, they argued on it but never got a decision. They later re-argued in October of 1972, and they finally decided on January 22nd of 1973. 20 years later, the Planned Parenthood v. Casey Court upheld Roe v. Wade and the right to have an abortion. Both judgments of the cases were overturned in 2022. Since then, it is claimed that as so long as the abortion restrictions do not cause extra burden to the person before the fetus is viable, they may have applied. Some states passed laws requiring counseling, waiting periods, marital consent, and parental involvement before getting an abortion. There are many people that say that Roe and Casey are not good laws.